Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you're watching on, and they will appear here in my chat room. And the chat room is on the screen because I don't have a guest today. So everyone can see all of the comments and we can communicate in this way. My subject for today is a continuation of our subject from yesterday. Yesterday I was talking about superstition. My stated title for today is Superstition and Empowerment. Because really empowerment is the point of this conversation. And I'm going to go back to our definition of superstition, the one that I use. And I take my definition of superstition from Plutarch. And Plutarch's definition of superstition is spiritual practice based in fear, as opposed to spiritual practice based in love. And hello to Mary Hawk in the chat room. It's good to see you. And Thursday evening, I will be appearing with Reverend Mary on Tarot Thursday. And Plutarch advanced this point of view in his book De Superstitiones in late antiquity. Plutarch, if you're not familiar with him, you should be if you're pagan. He was one of the last really great pagan authors and thinkers of the ancient world. He was a priest of Delphi. He had some very enlightening comments, in my opinion, on the oracles of Delphi and metaphysics in general. And hello to Reverend Michael in the chat room. It's good to see you, Michael. And particularly on the subject of superstition versus religion. And again, he defines superstition as things you do from fear of spirit, and religion as things you do from love of spirit. A lot of people, including a lot of people in the metaphysical community, seem to be subject to a lot of superstitions, things that they do out of fear. And for the most part, I very firmly reject this point of view. My point of view, which I partly credit to Plutarch, is the idea that metaphysics is supposed to set you free from fear. Metaphysics is supposed to help you handle whatever you might be afraid of and overcome it, not to chain you to other fears instead. And I've run into lots of people who have all kinds of little superstitions about what they do, and I don't tend to agree with it. We were talking about the Ouija board yesterday, and Reverend Mary sent me a Ouija board for a future Ouija board show, which we will be doing sometime soon. And hello to Magical Cloud in the chat room. But there are a lot of people who are bound by all kinds of superstitions around Ouija boards. Tarot cards are the same way. There are many people I have known who were very good tarot card readers, but also had a lot of unnecessary limitations around how they did it, at least in my view, unnecessary. And I will grant you, everyone has different ways of doing things, so I'm not saying that they're necessarily wrong for how they do it, but it's not how I would teach you to do it. But for example, that it used to be a very common point of view that cards must be wrapped in a silk cloth to protect them from unwanted influences. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly very picturesque. But is that necessary? I've not found it to be necessary. And equally importantly, historically, I don't know that most people who were reading tarot cards could have afforded silk cloth at that time. And hello to Ed the Pagan in the chat room. It's good to see you, Ed. Therefore, it seems to me that this can hardly be a necessity if most people were not able to do it. I do not wrap my tarot cards in silk cloth, or for that matter, I don't. My tarot cards are sitting right here on the computer table in front of me, not wrapped in anything. What I will do is I will cleanse them energetically before I read with them, and that will take care of any problem with anything they may have picked up. Another thing that I find is people who have very temperamental tarot cards. And, again, I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong for them if that's how they relate to their cards, but I consider that to be an unnecessary complication. And people who work that way will say, oh, it's inescapable, but it's never been an issue for me because I never let it be an issue for me. And I think that with a lot of these superstitions, that issue of whether you let it be a problem or not is the most important thing. I think a lot of times people pass these things on because it's just what they happen to know. But my point of view is that metaphysics really is more about setting us free from things that we do from fear and from being afraid of everything. Now, Mary says, I keep my tarot cards in bags of various materials because I go various places to read. Absolutely. I've been known to keep my tarot cards in a baggie, just in case when I'm out traveling somewhere that they might be exposed to moisture. The baggie would keep them safe. I've never found that to be any worse a place to keep them than anywhere else. I've also had beautiful decorative wooden boxes to keep them in. Had some stone boxes to keep them in over the years. And I've had some bags that I more commonly keep them in now, which were gifts from various people. I have one bag, for example, for my tarot cards that was gifted to me when I was visiting Africa at the Temple of the Clan of Kepper. And for me, what makes that desirable is the memory of that wonderful trip and the wonderful people. And that adds value to the experience, but it's not the bag itself that's better than any other way to keep them. And Daniel says, hello, Daniel, in the chat room. Daniel says, I keep my tarot cards in a special box with a gem, but that is just to give them a sacred place. And yeah, I mean, that is a good reason, because it implies that you could keep them otherwise. And Michael says, having a non-pagan handling your sacred items is a no-no. Well, not for me. No one else handling my stuff is going to have more powerful energy than I do. I'm not worried about it. And as a tarot reader, everyone handles my cards because if I'm reading in person, I will have them shuffle the cards. I have never perceived tarot cards as something that you cannot handle. I'm also not one of those people who is terribly protective of altar items either. I tend to figure that if the energy is, if it's at all energetic, it's not going to be disturbed by someone touching it. But that's my point of view. I kind of come from the keep it simple and happy point of view. I've known people who get terribly upset because someone happened to touch their altar. And I see no reason for that. I would say if you've made your altar properly, that's not going to do anything. Granted, if they're putting their drink there, that may leave a stain on the altar cloth. That's a bigger objection in my point of view. But I think part of that is the way that I grew up. And I grew up in a pagan family. Um, and we just took these things a lot less extremely. And now Daniel says, and I assume we're still talking about tarot cards, they're a tool. So the box is simply a mini altar. I usually like when the person I'm reading for shuffles them and touches them as it's their reading. Absolutely. Now, Edward asks, could a deck become haunted? Yes, absolutely. In the sense that any item, and particularly metaphysical items, because they're geared toward this, can pick up an energetic charge. Um, but what I would say is it would take quite a charge for that to happen. And would that be a good thing or a bad thing? And of course, when you use the term haunted, it sets up the expectation of a bad thing. But if what we mean is, could they carry the energetic signature and an energetic effect from a deceased person who has previously owned them? Absolutely. And would that be good or bad? Well, it probably depends on the person and your relation to them. For example, I still have, in fact, I have them right here, my very first deck of tarot cards. And they are the hoi polloi cards. And here they are. And these were gifted to me by my mother. And if you were to ask me, could these still have any of her energy on them? My answer is yes. And in fact, and we have someone shilling in the chat room. Sahid Ope, do not click on that link, whatever you do. That is a scam. But could those cards still have some of my mother's energy on them? I kind of feel that they do. And I feel that is a benefit. If I did not feel it was a benefit, I could cleanse the cards of that energy. And this brings us back to what we were saying yesterday, which is that if you have an effect that you do not like, the best way to deal with it is to cleanse and ground the energy. If you cleanse the energy, nothing can manifest. It requires the energy to manifest. When it comes to an energetic charge, if you remove the energy, you remove the charge. So although those cards have been cleansed thousands of times, my mother's energy is not something I was intending to remove from them. And hello to Renee in the chat room. And it's good to see you, Renee. And Mary says, my grandkids always played with items on my altar. They listened to shells and waved the feathers around. Absolutely. And, I am of the same point of view. That would not bother me at all, as long as people are behaving respectfully. Now, Danielle says, some people believe that a deck has to be given to you to work. I personally don't subscribe to that belief. And, I am exactly the same way. I have heard that, and I consider the idea that a deck must be given to you is a superstition. And I want to say hello to Mystic Wright, or Mystique Wright in the chat room. It's good to see you, Mystique. And we have a guest. Hello. I can't hear you, though. Hello.
I'm just trying to get rid of the spammer.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. I do not... I very strongly advise, if people post messages that say, I have a reading for you, or the ancestors wish to talk to you, or the spirits wish to talk to you, or anything like that, that you do not take them up on it. Legitimate people do not work that way. And hello to Nikki Dodd in the chat room. Um, it is not what is normally done. Now, I will say that if you know the person, it might be different. If I happen to get a message for someone that I knew, yes, I might feel the need to talk to them about that. I don't find that happens very often, um, but I might say, um, I got a message for you. Here it is. Take it for what it's worth. Um, but I wouldn't do that with a stranger under normal circumstances. I'm hard pressed to imagine anything short of an absolute emergency that would ever make me do that, because it's not appropriate. And real spiritual workers um, do not simply slide into the comments section offering random readings. It's just not what is done. So when you see people like this, um, yeah, don't go there. Um, look for more legitimate people. Now, you can find situations where legitimate people may be doing free readings, but they won't be walking up to you on the street for the most part doing that. Although maybe on the streets of someplace like Salem. But you know what I mean. It's just not the thing that a professional psychic will do. Now, getting back to tarot cards and altars and other things, and Daniel was saying about the idea about tarot cards being gifted to you as something that he does not subscribe to, and I do not either. I have heard that. I've also heard that only the first deck should be a gift. In my case, my first deck was a gift from my mother, but I don't know that I believe it needed to be. And part of my reason for that is that if we look back historically, who would be giving you a tarot deck unless you knew a bunch of readers? And, that's a way to never get into tarot if you think someone has to give it to you. So I'm all in favor of going and buying the deck you want. I think that for most people, that's the only way they're going to get one. So, of course, I don't subscribe to that point of view, and I consider it to be a superstition, an unnecessary fear that holds you back from something you do not need to be held back from. So my attitude is by all means, buy the deck or decks that you want. I once had a gigantic collection of tarot decks. I've still got a few. And I may one day again have a large collection. And some of those were gifts, but most of them were purchased because I would find decks that appealed to me and I would buy them. And I think that that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Now, Mary says, I didn't know anyone who would have given me a deck when I got started. And I think that's true for most people. I came from a family where lots of people did this sort of thing, but most people don't. And yeah, I just find it to be a point of view I could not agree with. And again, a superstition. And Daniel says, I've been gifted oracle decks from doing the podcast. And yeah, I've been given decks over the years by people who, who were hoping I would help to promote them, or also people who just thought they were cool. They had found a deck and it wasn't for them, but they thought I might like it. And also just as gifts. One of the most recent ones I got is a tarot deck of Universal Horror film monsters, which was given to me by Renee in the chat room. Beautiful deck. And hello to Maggie in the chat room. It's good to see you, Maggie. And Maggie says, is it necessary to put a spiritual altar with glasses of water for every spirit guide, and I would say no, unless they've specifically asked for that. But generally, I would think you could approach your spirit guides with group offerings. It doesn't have to be individual for everyone because they're working as a group, unless they've asked for something different. And for myself, usually, if making an offering to my spirit guides, it would be one offering for all of them, unless perhaps it was a special occasion that where I was honoring one in particular, in which case they might get a special offering for them. For example, my mother's birthday was November 25th, and that would be an occasion for a specific offering for her. And Mystique says, my family still subscribes to the belief that crossing a black cat's path is bad luck. My great aunt refuses to cross over the path and immediately turns back. Now that is an interesting thing. And my personal take on that, I do regard um, omens, which is unexpected happenings like that, as having meaning. To me, the black cat crossing your path is saying that you need to pay attention to a spiritual message. And hello to Zane in the chat room. It's good to see you. And I don't necessarily regard it as bad luck, but rather a warning that you need to see something. But one of the things that is very interesting regarding black cats is that a lot of people have totally misunderstood the tradition regarding black cats and thinking that they're bad luck. That is not at all a traditional belief about black cats. The actual traditional belief is more about how you see a black cat or any particular animal. And the black cat crossing your path was a warning, but if a black cat follows you, that was good luck. If it happens to come to your door, that was good luck. And people, not entirely surprisingly, tend to hold on to the frightening ideas more than the encouraging ones. Which brings us back to our message for today: superstition versus empowerment. It's much better to focus on those things that empower you and move you forward, and not focus on fear. And there are always things that can cause fear. And fear is a necessary emotion on occasion. It warns you of things that have to be dealt with. But you notice it, you take the action you need to take, and you go on. I've been talking for the last year a great deal about Project 2025. I probably will talk about it more. But my message on this subject is not be afraid, but rather think about the actions you can take to move yourself forward regardless of what happens, to move your community forward regardless of what happens. Look for the things that will increase your security. And my attitude toward metaphysics in general is that as well. Do not look for things that are going to bind you or limit you or hold you back, but rather look for the things that will propel you forward. And if you do that, you're going to feel much better about everything. And Daniel says, today my offering was discipline, continued discipline. And that is a very important point, that when we talk about offerings, we can be talking about physical substances, such as water, which Maggie mentioned, or we can be talking about actions. One of the things that I've often said is that the true altar is our heart, and the true prayer is our life. And the things that we do are also offerings to Spirit. And I think if we think of that in those terms more often, we'll have a better understanding of these subjects. Now, with that, I see that we're nearing the end of our half hour, and we need to take a moment for a message from our sponsors. Why? Because we love our sponsors. Here we go.
Ready to unlock the secrets of the universe? Join me, Rev Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Rev Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours.
And thank you to our sponsors, Equinox Learning Hub and Rev Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions. Our next auction is scheduled for Friday the 13th. That's this Friday. Join us. It will be cool. And Maggie says, many blessings to you, Lord Don, and to everyone. Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate that. Since we're near the end of the hour, or of the half hour, I'm going to just basically sum up what I've been saying, which is that metaphysics are here to help you to overcome fear and move beyond it. They should never make your fears worse. They should not bind your activities, but rather empower you to do more. And that will always be my point of view on these subjects. And I do realize that there are people who enjoy or make use of fear to organize their lives. And I guess if that's what you need, that's great. But to me, overcoming those fears, dispelling those fears, removing negative influences, that's what this is really about. And making your life as positive and successful as possible. And I hope that you will take that message away from this program and empower it in your own life. With that, let us close with our prayer as we always do, and I'll be back tomorrow with Chris Copeland, my usual Wednesday guest, and we will probably be talking about Rev Don's book of stones, metals, and crystals, but probably some other things as well. And thank you. I hope you have a lovely day, and let us close with our prayer as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love for all the things that you do for us in our lives that help us to overcome our fears and our limitations. Help us to embrace our ultimate potential and the greatness of life, and help us to move forward. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you're always with us, we thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you again.